Welcome to Clicks and Coffee. I'm Alexander, and here we dive deep into the journeys of entrepreneurs and marketing innovators. Each episode, we uncover the challenges, triumphs, and unique strategies of our amazing guests, giving you valuable insights and inspiration. Our goal is to build a community of growth-oriented professionals ready to learn, collaborate, and thrive in the ever-evolving world of digital marketing. So whether you're here for the latest trends or looking for that next big idea, you've come to the right place. Let's get started. And today we have the honor to have Michael Brown joining us. Today, Michael is a partner at Shield Capital, which invests in entrepreneurs building tech that matters. That was taken directly from the website. But before that, he had quite an impressive career, which will make this episode pretty inspiring from entrepreneurs. Michael, thanks for being here.
I'm delighted to be here. So thanks for having me today.
So can you tell us a little bit about your career journey? I know we could do like an entire podcast just about your career.
Well, that would probably only be interesting to my mother. So I'm glad we're going to broaden some other topics. Yeah, my career basically had three parts to it. The first part is standard business career as a tech executive here in Silicon Valley, which is where I live after graduating from business school at Stanford, where I met my wife. And it was basically two large companies where I was a CEO of both. One, Quantum, a computer hardware company where I was for 20 years, making disk drives and tape drives, storage subsystems. Then a stint at Symantec, the cybersecurity firm. At the time, it was the 10th largest software company in the world. So this is going back almost a decade now. It was the world's largest cybersecurity company. So I was there for 3 years during a turnaround. And then along the way, have been a board member, CEO coach, and chairman of several smaller companies that I had the opportunity to work with along the way. One was Equalogic, which was a storage company that got sold to Dell. Two music companies, Line 6, that got sold to Yamaha, and the other one was the Echo Nest that got sold to Spotify. It's the recommendation engine when you put a Spotify playlist together. So I'm an amateur musician, spent some time also playing in a band where I was Saturday night, playing dance songs, and have served on the Berklee College of Music board as well. So kind of an interesting combination, I guess, of some tech interest in music. The second part of my career was working for the Defense Department. So I had an opportunity to meet my now business partner, Raj Shah, who preceded me at a part of the Defense Department that was brand new called the Defense Innovation Unit. Set up in 2015 by Ash Carter, who I'm fortunate to say was a mentor to me, as he was to many people. And his idea, very much needed now more than ever, the military needs more commercial technology to upgrade its capability, basically to use the best of what Silicon Valley and the other innovation hubs are creating to modernize and give our warfighters the best capabilities. Most of the technology the military needs these days, in addition to, the kinetic effects, the rifles or bombs that you have to use in war, would be AI, cyber, autonomy, all of the things that are being developed in the commercial world. And so now I'm in the third part of my career. I've worked at the Defense Department for 6 years, fascinating experience. And now the third part is venture capital. So I'm basically using the things I've learned along the way in running and leading a business, what I did in my time in government, which was all about getting more commercial business for companies with the military, and now investing in those same companies to create those opportunities.
And we know that it's like a new trend of having more commercial companies helping the military, and a good example is Brian. How do you pronounce his last name? Schimpf from Anduril.
Brian Schimpf, at Anduril.
That sold Oculus to Facebook and say, like kind of like you were, we need to help the government, except he has a company and you invest in companies,
right?
Which is even a bigger picture, I would say, for the future. And so, what really inspired you into starting a venture capital fund to do that? Because at the time, and we know that at the time now it's becoming a little even more relevant, but at the time it was very, I would say, unique, and nobody would do that.
Right. Well, I think as the military has recognized the need to modernize and use more commercial technology, that's created an opportunity for more companies. If you go all the way back to the 1960s, when the first space race occurred with the Soviets, uh, the the Defense Department and NASA were basically leading the technology revolution for what was required for their missions. NASA, obviously, with the Apollo mission to get to the moon, the Defense Department with miniaturizing electronics at first for use in nuclear weapons. That created the semiconductor industry, the chip industry, and that was centered in Silicon Valley. The venture capital industry rose as a way to finance those companies with some government help from something called small business investment corporations, SBICs. So the government was very involved at that point, helping the financing and being the first customer and early adopter of semiconductor output. And of course, it was that leap that allowed the volume and the cost of semiconductors to come down, the volume to go up, the cost to come down. That now means chips are used in everything we experience in modern life. It's gone well beyond the military to every consumer product, whether it's the supercomputer we have in our pocket, the smartphone,
Yeah.
to refrigerators, automobiles. Chips are in everything that really have made all of those products much more functional. And so, if you start basically from that time period and go forward, the military has become over time much less of that early adopter, and now global consumers around the world are determining the needs of or determining what entrepreneurs are building and really shaping a lot of the trends in the technologies today that we would say would be game changing, like AI, cyber, autonomy, synthetic biology, on and on. So, from that perspective, I feel like I'm where the action is. I helped the government for a little while basically adopt that technology. What do we need to do to start working with more of those companies rather than just the people who build uh, planes, tanks, and ships? The Northrop Grumman's and Lockheed's, to smaller companies like Anduril, like Shield AI, C3, that are being successful. And now there's an opportunity to build the next generation of those companies. And that's what's exciting about working at Shield Capital. You mentioned the tagline we have, investing in technology that matters. Another phrase we use is supporting the innovators who will secure our future. So maybe one thing that makes us a little bit different than
Wow.
folks in the other part of the defense investing world is we're taking a much broader view of national security, as anything that would secure critical infrastructure would be part of our mission. Um,
So
and
try to be more a little bit proactive, like companies that would be more proactive than reactive,
yes,
as far as defense and security.
yes, exactly.
And so how do you work on inspiring, or maybe already a lot of people are inspired, but where do you find those entrepreneurs, and where do you find those entrepreneurs, and or how do you get entrepreneurs excited to build this kind of technologies, which we've seen in the past that tech and defense don't always match very well, and more of an ideology level. We've seen that with Google, that had people like laying on the floor and blocking conferences and things like that. So how does that work? Is there a shift in mentality?
Right. Well, that's it. That's why I told the story about the origin of the semiconductor industry. Actually, defense and tech were intertwined, I'd say, from the beginning. Then Ash Carter observed they kind of moved in different directions, now coming back together for a wide variety of technologies that really will improve national security as well as being successful in the commercial world. And you pointed out kind of a low point, which was Google employees protesting the work the company was doing on something called Project Maven for the Pentagon. Project Maven was a way to start doing labeling of images so that rather than having analysts stare at pixels all day long, the machine could do some work, computer vision, machine learning technologies, to basically identify what might be worth looking at. So it was basically a productivity tool. It wasn't it wasn't dropping bombs on anyone, sending drones anywhere. It was basically, how do we make more sense of the imagery we're already collecting? I think since Google has come out and basically said to its employees, we're not crowdsourcing our business strategy. We're going to support the U.S. government. They now have a very large, successful federal business division. And at the same time, Microsoft and Amazon came out the same and said, we're supporting the U.S. government in what they're doing. And the place to exercise your opinions about that is at the polls. So please vote, but we're going to support the government and the military with our business strategy, which I think was very appropriate. I think Ukraine has changed attitudes to a large degree as well, because there couldn't be any more clear moral argument than supporting free peoples and the Ukrainians who are resisting an oppressive totalitarian regime which didn't respect their borders and marched in to create the first and very dangerous land war since World War II. So that has really been an inflection point, I think, with many entrepreneurs who want to support national security, recognizing no, it's not always a gray. There's black and white in terms of good and evil in the world, and we want to make sure technology is supporting forces for the good. So surprisingly, that has made a huge difference in terms of the number of entrepreneurs pursuing national security and their willingness to support the Defense Department. So it's a sea change since what you described with Google and Project Maven, which is, probably 5 years old at least at this point.
Yeah, no, it's pretty interesting, and it's nice to see that the point of investing in defense is not only for doing harm. It's of course you're going to harm somebody, but it's for helping. It's for the greater good. So you have to make a choice eventually. So it's better to make it for good people and helping good people.
We should also point out, though, that the military has a lot of humanitarian missions. I mean, around the world and in the U.S., when we see devastating hurricanes, as we saw recently with Hurricane Milton, the first folks on the ground are National Guard, our military supporting local law enforcement and first responders. And they need technology to make sure they're doing their job the best, saving lives. And we're doing that in the best way possible.
And we all know that technology helps productivity, and all the biggest company in the world are American and with American technology. So why don't we use it same technology for the government to make it more efficient, and at the end of the day maybe spend less and be more efficient.
That's exactly right.
No, and so we got connected together regarding Strider, which is a company you're a board member of. So can you tell us a little bit about what they do and the plan for the company for the future?
Very excited about Strider Intel. I've been on the board for 2 years now, but I've known the founders for about 7 years and met them during my time in government. So I'm a huge fan of Greg and Eric Levesque, two twins who are the CEO and COO, respectively, of Strider. Their business is to basically make sense of the intelligence that we can gather openly. So it's not a classified business. Intelligence that we can gather that will let us know whether our employees are working with one of the many talents programs of the Chinese Communist Party, or if the companies we're working with as suppliers have ties to the PLA or their supply base. So they basically have ingested about 12 billion documents in Mandarin. Now they've expanded to Russian and Farsi as well. And they're able to see there's more than one talents program that the Chinese have. Most well known is the 1,000 Talents program, but there are almost 500 different talent programs for the Chinese to attract mostly technology oriented folks, experts in various areas, and they want to attract them to either move to China, be gathering information for China in the countries where they live, come to do teaching, set up labs, companies in China. So a variety of these talent programs. And Strider has discovered that there are quite a few folks in the U.S. who have ties there. And that is certainly worth knowing if you're a company. You probably don't want that.
Wow.
It's also worth knowing if you're in government and um, you have a national lab. There was a public report they did for Los Alamos National Laboratories. You can Google and find this, that identified a number of employees who were not only employees of the national lab, but also were working with the Chinese. So these kind of things we need to know and hopefully do take steps in the future to
Yeah.
prevent our open society from being exploited so blatantly by by an adversary in China.
Wow. That is it's pretty incredible. And so basically what they do is that they find it's readily available documents, so there is nothing, hacking or anything. It's just
Right.
using what's available to figure out well, it's pretty incredible. And
Yes.
so today they are managing, so you were saying China and then Russia and Iran with the
Iran.
Farsi,
And
correct?
believe it or not, they're able to draw some connections that would be more difficult to see in terms of how those countries are collaborating with each other. Uh, David Sanger, in his recent book, The New Cold Wars, makes the point that unlike in the past, where we faced adversaries, the Soviet Union or Nazi Germany, they may have had some allies, but they weren't collaborating that closely in terms of their technology and supply chain. And I think what he's pointed out and what Strider has also proven through data is now there's trade and collaboration with these adversaries who are working in concert to frustrate our foreign policy objectives.
Oh, that's pretty crazy. And so
Yeah.
and with Strider, so do they I'm trying to figure out exactly how they plan on like growing, or like what is the growth of the business. Do they do their own, I would say, investigative work and then present it to the government, or is it the government asking like, please check this set of employees, please check this, please check that? Or how does that work? Because it seems to be like a never-ending work, and you just need to keep adding languages.
Well, that's good for their business, isn't it? So you're you're onto it exactly. Part of their business grows as they ingest more data and become more capable and look at what's happening in other countries that go beyond the documents they ingest that are in Mandarin. Then they're able to sell that data, both the data itself, which comes as a subscription, or intelligence products built on that data to a variety of customers. Companies are interested in knowing whether their employees are working for the Chinese. The government is interested in that data. A good example, many of the award recipients for our small business research grants, something called the SIBR program, Small Business Innovation Research Grants, was brought up in Congress when the program was reauthorized, I think about 2 years ago, that a number of the grants were going to Chinese affiliated companies, and we didn't even know it. So now Strider
Wow.
has a contract to basically screen the award recipients for these grants to make sure that's not the case. International is a growing market. There's quite a bit of business that the company's doing in Canada and Japan. I expect that to continue to other European countries and other allies around the world. And most of the commercial companies are very large companies. They have an unusually high proportion of the Fortune 50, I think about half of the Fortune 50. And now they're looking at how the product can be more readily used and adopted by smaller companies. So they're expanding the markets they're going after. They're growing internationally. The use of more data expands how relevant they are, and selling to governments and universities around the world as well. So the
Oh,
lot of
universities
interesting
too. Yeah.
prospects for Strider.
Wow, that is pretty crazy. And no, it's pretty unbelievable. And so, one of the thing that's interesting with all of companies that they kind of do a little bit of a secretive work, even though it shouldn't be that secret, because that's the point of the company is to be known. But they have to also be mindful of how they portray themselves. And so,
Mm-hmm.
how does it work to grow a company like that? How do you market a company like that where you're trying to kind of, you know, be careful because you don't want to attract too much to you since you're trying to figure out who is spying on a company, spying on a country, etc. At the same time, you want to be careful not to attract too many, I would say, people to avoid having too many, I would say, like hacking attacks or something like that, cyber attacks to their company. But at the same time, you want to market your business. So how do they do that dance and like how does the business functions like that? Is it more like word of mouth or like connection through you, for example? Or is it really that they try to go out and go to shows and meet people and try to be as open as possible?
Well, I think a lot of their business is word of mouth and repeat customers. They have a very high retention rate of current customers, but they're not doing anything classified or using confidential data. In fact, the way they understand the employees of a particular company, of say a Fortune 50 company, is all of the employees now have a profile on social media, LinkedIn being the most popular. So it's pretty easy to put together a list of the employees who are working at a particular company. You just use that data, and then you can compare that against the proprietary data that they have, which is collecting the documents in Mandarin. So nothing secretive about it, and they don't need to be hush hush in terms of their marketing efforts. This is useful information for all companies. That's useful to know about my employee base. It's useful to know if I'm doing an acquisition and I'm getting a lot of new employees. The government needs to know that information as well for its own employee base. So,
Okay, so yeah, in the case of Strider, it's really a company that doesn't even have to, be a government company or like a defense contractor. It's really a
oh
intelligence
yeah,
company
yeah,
for any
it's
type of
that's right.
companies.
I would not classify it as a defense contractor at all. In fact, they're pursuing a market that is really new. That's called OSINT, which is open source intelligence. Because there's so much information available in the world, much of it digital, online. How do we take advantage of all that? There's more than you can do as a human. So you've got to use uh, computers, you got to operate at machine speeds, use new techniques like machine learning. How do I put those together so I get more intelligence from the information that's available? That's their business.
Wow, no, that's pretty fascinating. Pretty fascinating because we all have those, I would say, background search companies or whatever, but this is operating at like a whole other level. And so in the companies that you invested in, what are the other companies that are like very exciting, I would say, for what's coming?
Well, that's one of the fun things about my job in venture is you do get a view to many different technologies and companies. I'd have to say the same was true when I led the Defense Innovation Unit. That's made it very interesting relative to earlier in my career. We focused for a decade on a single company and its products and competitors. Well, I'll give you a couple of quick examples. So, in space, which is one of the four investment domains for Shield Capital, AI, cyber, autonomy, and space. In space, which is always interesting to talk about, we saw the phenomenal technical achievement of SpaceX over this past weekend.
Yep.
Basically, catch one of the boosters of that rocket in the launch tower. So not only reusable rockets, which SpaceX has pioneered, but now the reusable boosters has really lowered the cost of getting cargo into space. So now we're entering a new era where there's going to be more sensors of different types covering the globe almost in real time. We're not there yet, but the amount that is being launched into space is giving us much closer to that sensor capability than what we've ever had in the past. So, two examples of investments we've made. One is a company making these satellites called Albedo, very low Earth orbit satellites. So I'm close to the ground to get good optical signal.
Mm-hmm.
And I combine that with infrared. So now I can not only see something on the ground, but I can tell whether it's been an active runway or a parking lot that's being used, or things are
Oh,
stone cold.
wow.
That's one example. Another, there's more cargo that's going into space because it's an order of magnitude less now with reusable rockets than it would have been 2 or 3 decades ago. So there's actually a need for more standardized buses to attach satellites to. And we've invested in a company called Apex in Southern California that's building these vehicles or satellite buses. In fact, that company went the fastest from clean sheet of paper to getting something in space, 13 months. Just very amazing. We're investing in the cyberspace, which is, of course, an area I know well from my background at Symantec. One of the interesting companies there, Anatac, is a company that is looking at non-human identity. Most of the accounts that a company, an enterprise would need to manage are not the ones associated with humans, where we're changing our password and doing multi-factor authentication for security, but accounts that let the enterprise applications talk to each other. And a big vulnerability results from that if you're not practicing the best security there. Most companies aren't, because they don't want to mess with the operations of what keeps the company running. So they're exposing that vulnerability for chief information security officers so they can take remedial action and make sure that they are monitoring those accounts with the same regularity as we would be watching the accounts identified with us as people. So that's a rapidly growing business. Going to be very interesting. You might remember the SolarWinds attack from a few years ago was exploiting this non-human identity to get access to to companies and to government departments and agencies. Another one I'll mention real quick in the cyberspace is Mimic. They're looking at a new way to help companies protect from ransomware, which is probably the most prevalent cyber attack for commercial reasons. If you get away from governments that are looking for information from each other, the biggest commercial exploitation is ransomware. So they've got a very interesting technique to basically delay the attackers, have them think they've gotten in, and put them on a deception path so that you get more time to protect your data from a ransomware attack.
Wow.
If
that
we go
is a
on
big
to
one, because we've heard, I'm based in Florida, so Fort Lauderdale, and we had actually a couple of cities. It was in the news. A couple of cities got hacked and
yes,
basically had a ransomware on a city. What do you want to do in a city? Like, you have
yes,
to give in. It's
cities,
crazy.
hospitals, universities. Yeah, the ransomware epidemic has expanded beyond large companies to really be exploiting small businesses, which really feel defenseless.
Wow, that is pretty incredible. So yeah, that for sure. I think that's going to be a pretty interesting company, because and I'm even thinking, because up until now, all those attacks were made by humans,
Right.
and now, that now with AI and large language model and everything, you can recreate things. And actually, in another company that I'm invested in, we had an issue like that, where the supplier got their email hacked, and they used like the entire story, like the entire history of the emails back and forth and everything, to ask us to change the bank info. And it was like, okay, and we changed. Luckily, it was not a big amount, but I can imagine when it's you know $1 million. I think it was the CEO of Ferrari, or the CFO of Ferrari, that almost got fooled like that. So
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be more and more problematic, I would say. So it's pretty exciting to see that a lot of people are trying to do something.
Yes.
So I'm looking forward to that. And so, how do you help those company market themselves? Is it really, we always say, like, is it better to have a good product and bad marketing, or a bad product and good marketing? But how do you help? Because I'm sure that all the founders of these companies are more on the tech side, and more the brainy side, and less on the marketing side of things. So how do you help this company evolve? Or is it just because they are solving, or because the companies you're investing are just solving such a huge problem that it sells itself?
Well, anyone who's tried to lead a business knows that nothing really sells itself. So you need a little bit of hope along the way. But I'd say the CEOs are pretty savvy in terms of selling because they need to sell to customers, they need to sell to employees, they need to sell to investors. So if you're not someone who's able to sell or communicate the benefits of what you're doing, you're going to find it pretty difficult, no matter how great the product is that you've built. Uh, I think what we try and do at Shield is two things. One, all of the partners are have been in leadership positions in companies, so we like to roll up our sleeves and help wherever we can. Certainly, help CEOs avoid some of the pitfalls we may have made in our careers. And second, we have more folks at Shield who have some experience in selling to the government. So at the right time, for satellite companies, it's sooner. For a cyber company, maybe later. They're going to want to start selling to the federal government, which is a huge market. And we have more expertise on that from people who have served in uniform or led government organizations like myself. My partner Raj has done both of those. Than I think any other firm that's focused on national security applications. So we then help those companies at the right time, as I said, in their evolution, figure out what's the most productive way to start that process. You can waste. Most people are intimidated to sell to the government because it's complex to understand the process, the people, the organizations, and you can waste a lot of time there if you're not talking to the right people. So we help folks navigate that and get to the most productive paths as soon as they can.
So that's a pretty good company to have, and it's pretty good to have you by their side to help them. No, that is very amazing, and I really love all these companies. And so, what is the main? I would say, like, what is the main thing that you look for in a company and the CEO of that company? Because I've heard many venture capital. Some people say, "Oh, we just care about the company," and some people say, like, "Yeah, the idea is one thing, but the most important is the CEO." And I was like, "Wow!" It's like they will take on a business that is they don't truly believe in, but they truly believe in the person.
Well, that might be a bit extreme to say we don't care what the business is.
No,
I would
yeah,
agree
yeah.
that the most important criterion for an investment at Shield is the team. I would broaden it beyond the CEO. The CEO is important, but we find that experienced, capable teams are the best indicator of success. So the CEO is obviously critical in that because he or she is the leader of that very capable team. But it takes more than a great CEO. And great CEOs already know they should have a team around them that can help execute. So that is number one. But I would say it's very important what the business is. In our case, we're investing in four specific domains: AI, cyber, autonomy, space. So if you're doing a dating app or even something that's healthcare tech related, we're not the right investor for you. And then we're looking at, can the business generate venture level returns? So there's a lot of great businesses in the world which can be very successful for the person who runs them as a founder, but are not going to deliver a 10x or more venture return, meaning for whatever we invest in the business, that we're going to grow our money
Yeah.
by 10x or more. And there are a lot of venture capitals that don't even achieve 1x return. So half of the venture industry does not achieve return of capital. But
Oh,
those firms that are outperforming can generate a pretty large multiple of capital invested. So if you're in the top 10%, you're returning 3 times or more of that capital invested. That's where Shield aims to be. And for us, that's making sure the team is capable and also the business can generate venture level returns. It's not just something that would be a lifestyle business.
yeah, no, of course, and it's very exciting, and I'm actually following, all those new types of entrepreneurs that, don't care too much about dating apps and care more
Mm-hmm.
about technology that, matters, I would say. All matters, but the idea is to see, how can we make the US, better country, safer country, and more prepared for what's coming because interesting things are coming.
Well,
Good
we would agree with
advice.
that completely. That we would like to see more of the investment in technology going to the technology that matters, technology that has a mission or purpose that's stronger than just how to make more money. And frankly, that attracts more mission oriented, dedicated entrepreneurs. Um, I can say, after having worked at the Defense Department, working to support our warfighters is a very inspiring and valuable mission, and that motivates a lot of great people to work on that. And so, something similar at Shield, we're also very mission oriented and want to support the entrepreneurs who are building the tech that helps warfighters.
No, that's pretty exciting. And so I always like to ask that question, and it's going to be even more relevant for you. But what are you excited about technology today, and what are you worried about?
Well, technologies we know can be used for good or for bad. So I'm excited about the rapid pace of technology that allows what might have been impossible now to be possible. And of course, great example I'll point to again, what we saw this weekend with
Mm.
SpaceX. That would have been thought impossible a decade ago, and SpaceX has now proven that's possible. That creates so many benefits for our global society in terms of what can be done in space, enabling satellite communications from anywhere on the globe. Ukraine, a war zone, but remote locations anywhere. That's a phenomenal achievement for the world to be able to communicate no matter where you are using satellite as a basis for communications. So I'm excited about the pace of change and what it's enabling. And then, yes, any technology can be used for ill. So we're also need to be active in the conversation about what guardrails there are to protect us against technology falling into the wrong hands or being used for malicious purposes.
Yeah, yeah, no, that I totally agree. No, and then not to steal your thunder, but yes, the SpaceX launch of the Starship was truly amazing. And anybody that doesn't care about space, just for the heck of it, just watch it, and from all angles, because I showed it to my wife actually, who I always talk about rocket launches, and she's always yeah, and then I showed that, and she was like, that is pretty impressive,
That's
especially
pretty
when I told
amazing.
her that was like 230 feet high booster, which is mind-boggling. So
It really is.
yeah, no, I'm
And those
super
kind of
excited.
developments are happening in so many different fields right now. If you look at what's happening in synthetic biology, the ability to manipulate basically the building blocks for life and use that as
Mm.
a means of manufacturing uh, is really mind-boggling.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, no,
almost every field, large language models, what's possible now through LLMs is amazing.
yeah,
So every
yeah.
field is seeing very rapid advances.
Yeah, no, it's pretty crazy. No, but I truly wish Shield Capital all the best, and I'll be monitoring closely, the news of all the companies that you invested in, and that is super exciting, and it feels good to have people, like you that really try to invest in those type of companies and enabling entrepreneurs to create good solution, for the country.
Well, thanks. We'll take the good luck. We are very excited about what we're doing, and I feel very privileged to be working with such a great team on an important mission.
All right, everybody. So you can go to shieldcap.com and then take a look at the companies, and you can click on all of them and learn more about them.